In 1876, in the quiet Dutch city of Leeuwarden, a baby girl named Margaretha Geertruida Zell was born. No one could have imagined that this child would one day become one of the most famous and infamous women in modern history. Her story is a whirlwind of glamour, tragedy, and mystery that still captivates us over a century later. Margaretha's childhood started with all the promise of a comfortable, affluent life. Her father was a successful hat merchant who provided his family with a life of luxury. She was the apple of his eye, attending exclusive schools and enjoying the privileges that came with wealth. But this picture-perfect world was destined to crumble. When Margaretha was just a teenager, her father's business went bankrupt, shattering the family's fortunes. Soon after, her parents divorced, and her mother passed away. In the blink of an eye, the secure, happy world she knew was gone, replaced by uncertainty and hardship. This early taste of life as cruelty taught her a lesson she would never forget. Security is fragile, and survival often requires reinvention. Desperate for an escape and a return to the stability she had lost, a young Margaretha made a decision that would change her life forever. At just 18 years old, she answered a newspaper ad placed by a Dutch colonial army officer, Captain Rudolf MacLeod, who was seeking a wife. He was 20 years her senior, a career military man stationed in the Dutch East Indies, now modern-day Indonesia. For Margaretha, it was a ticket out of her bleak reality and into a world of exotic adventure. They married shortly after, and she soon set sail with him, leaving her troubled past behind for a new life in the East. Her early years in Indonesia seemed like a dream come true. The vibrant culture, the lush landscapes, the status that came with being an officer's wife. It was all intoxicating. She immersed herself in the local traditions, learning the language and, most importantly, the local dances, but this exotic fairy tale soon descended into a nightmare. Her marriage to Rudolf was anything but idyllic. He was a violent alcoholic, consumed by jealousy and resentment over their age difference and his own career disappointments. The glamour of colonial life hid a dark underbelly of domestic abuse and betrayal. The true heartbreak, however, came with the loss of their son Norman. In a tragic and still debated incident, both their children fell gravely ill, likely from poisoning by a disgruntled servant. While their daughter, Non, survived, Norman did not. This devastating loss shattered what little was left of their marriage. The grief and blame drove them further apart. Margaretha realized that her dream of a perfect life was an illusion. She was trapped in a toxic relationship, in a foreign land, with no way back to the innocence she had lost. This period of intense suffering forged a new resolve within her. She knew she could not go back to being the naive girl from Leeuwarden. Eventually the marriage collapsed completely, and Margaretha returned to Europe. But she came back a different woman. She was alone, penniless, and stripped of her social standing. A divorced woman with a tragic past had few options in early 20th century society. She could have faded into obscurity, another victim of circumstance, but inside Margaretha, a powerful fire had been lit. The desire not just to survive, but to be reborn. She had seen the power of performance and mystique in the East, and she knew she possessed a unique charm. She decided she wouldn't just find a new life, she would create one from scratch. And so she made her way to Paris, the glittering epicenter of art and culture. There, Margaretha Geertruida Zell ceased to exist. In her place, a new persona emerged, one she crafted with brilliant precision. She gave herself a new name, Matahari. In Malay, the language of her former home, it meant the eye of the day, or the sun. With this new identity, she stepped onto the stages of Paris. Her performances were unlike anything the city had seen before. She wasn't just a dancer, she was a storyteller. Drawing on her experiences in Indonesia, she performed exotic sensual dances, weaving tales of sacred temple rituals and Eastern mysticism. She presented herself as a princess from Java, shrouded in an aura of mystery. She shed layers of silk and jewels, her movements suggesting both spiritual reverence and a bold, new kind of female freedom. Paris was utterly captivated. In a society bound by strict Victorian morals, Matahari was a symbol of exotic rebellion. She became an overnight sensation, the talk of the town. Her fame spread like wildfire across Europe. She was the darling of high society, performing in private salons for the continent's elite. Generals, diplomats, powerful politicians, and wealthy industrialists all clamored for her attention. She became a courtesan to some of the most influential men in Europe, moving freely in the highest circles of power. Her life was once again filled with luxury, but this time it was on her own terms. She controlled her own destiny, her own image, and her own finances. She had achieved the independence she had always craved. But fame, especially the kind Mata Hari had, is a double-edged sword. Her success was built on a foundation of secrets and manufactured identity, and her proximity to power also brought incredible danger. In the summer of 1914, that danger became terrifyingly real. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, and the intricate web of alliances that held Europe together snapped. World War I erupted, plunging the continent into the bloodiest conflict it had ever known. The carefree glamour of the Belle Époque was replaced by the grim reality of trench warfare, paranoia, and suspicion. In this new world of spies and secrets, Mata Hari's life became a liability. As a Dutch citizen, she was a neutral, allowing her to travel across borders that were closed to others. Her international network of powerful lovers and her independent, unconventional lifestyle, once celebrated, were now seen as deeply suspicious. She traveled between Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and London, a fact that did not go unnoticed by Europe's fledgling intelligence agencies. To the French, she was a woman with German connections. To the Germans, she was a valuable asset with access to Allied officers. It was a dangerous game, and Mata Hari was right in the middle of it. The German intelligence service approached her, offering her money for information. In February 1917, the inevitable happened. Mata Hari was arrested in her room at the Hotel Élysée Palace in Paris. She was accused of being a German spy and of causing the deaths of tens of thousands of Allied soldiers. Her trial was a sham. It was held in secret behind closed doors. The evidence presented against her was flimsy, circumstantial, and largely based on hearsay. Her defense was inadequate, but France, bleeding from the war and desperate for a victory, any victory, needed a scapegoat. They needed a villain to blame for their devastating losses, and this famous, foreign, morally ambiguous woman was the perfect candidate. She embodied everything the establishment feared, a woman who was independent, sexually liberated, and who lived by her own rules. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. Mata Hari was found guilty of espionage and sentenced to death. On the cold, grey morning of October 15, 1917, she was taken to a field in Vincennes, on the outskirts of Paris, to face a firing squad. According to the legend that has been passed down, her final moments were as dramatic as her life. When they offered her a blindfold, she refused it. She wanted to face her accusers and her fate with her eyes wide open. She stood tall and proud, looking directly at the 12 soldiers who were about to end her life. Some reports even claim she blew them a kiss just before the order to fire was given. The shots rang out. In that moment, the woman, Margarita Zell, died. But the legend of Mata Hari was born. Even today, her story echoes with unanswered questions. Was she truly a spy, a femme fatale who traded secrets for money and power? Or was she simply a pawn in a much larger game, a victim of her own fame and the wartime paranoia that gripped Europe? Was she punished for espionage? Or was she executed for the crime of being a free and unconventional woman in a world that wasn't ready for her? Perhaps the truth is that Mata Hari was killed not just by bullets, but by prejudice, rumor, and fear. Her story is a powerful reminder of how easily a woman's independence can be twisted into a threat. Her name, a century later, is still whispered, a timeless symbol of mystique, tragedy, and the enduring debate between fact and legend. Thank you for watching. If you were fascinated by this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another journey into the past. We'll see you next time.